Okay, so I'm Joanne and I'm studying design for industry and final year at Northumbria University. The goal of the studio was to allow us to collaborate like across a barrier or boundary. So for us it was sort of collaborating overseas with industry professionals and other students studying similar disciplines to us. Well, there were project deadlines were established, files were shared, project work was sort of displayed and shared on the site, feedback was given and received as well, and any sort of problems or issues were sort of aired on the site as well. So for the first semester, which was Intel, we used Plone. We didn't use Skype for that one. So it was Plone, Outlook, and I think that was it. Oh, the teleconferencing. So the teleconferencing was mainly between us and industry professionals, so the people who worked at Intel, and Plone was used between ourselves and the industry professionals, but Outlook was mainly just used between ourselves and our university tutors, so there was no emailing happening between ourselves and the industry professionals we collaborated with.
What about in the second semester?
In the second semester with the other projects there was Skype, Outlook, teleconferencing and WordPress. So Skype enabled us to communicate with students on not the spoken chat but the written chat on the bottom of the interface. So that was useful for communicating across the language barrier. The WordPress was used in the same way that Plone was used in the first semester to upload work, share files, give and receive feedback. And Outlook again was just used between ourselves and our university tutors, and sometimes between peers as well. Plone and WordPress were good visual tools to share files, text, give and receive feedback. Teleconferencing was really good to communicate sort of in real time with industry professionals. Emails, well, we use them constantly, but they were good to sort of get some specific feedback from tutors. So that was sort of aside from the overseas collaboration. What were the other? Skype. Skype was particularly useful in the second semester, again to overcome the language barrier, and it was better than the teleconferencing because quite often with teleconferencing there would be sort of time delays in speaking, and you would sometimes speak over each other, whereas that didn't happen with Skype. And you also had the support of having the chat underneath for if the audio stopped, so that was really useful. Well, firstly, the teleconferencing enabled us to have sort of real-time contact with industry professionals rather than just emails or a phone call, say. Skype allowed us to have real-time conversations across the language barrier, so rather than trying to communicate over teleconference and there being confusion as to over the regional accents and things, it was straightforward and you could refer to the chat if you didn't understand sort of your language or your accent. Well, for a start I preferred WordPress. It was more intuitive to use. It seemed like it had more sort of user testing, so people had, like, maybe designers or people using visually rich stuff had possibly put it together and tested it. The navigational history of Plone was quite visual, so you had sort of a bit of a tree of where you'd come from, so that was really useful. However, you didn't seem to need that with WordPress because it was more intuitive to sort of navigate through, and it was a bit more like a blog, which is what we're sort of used to navigating through. You didn't really need this history of where you were. So it was although there was nothing visual to navigate you through, it came more naturally and seemed like it had more testing point to it and being made more similar to a blog that we would be used to. I think I was a lot more prepared because you sort of had deadlines of when you would have presentations, so it would be an arranged time. You would speak to either a student from Korea or a professional from Intel, and using the Plone before using the WordPress, it made you more aware that you had to have everything together, everything uploaded with possibly a date and a time or a number, so it was something to refer to. And because the two softwares were different, it wasn't that I specifically knew how to use it, it was just I'd been prepared for the collaboration overseas and maybe with the language and time barrier. So it was just familiarising yourself with the whole situation of collaborating with people you don't know and you're probably never going to meet. So it was good to familiarise yourself with that. So I think it probably prepared me for working in industry, doing virtual stuff possibly. I'm not really sure. I think sometimes just being thrown into it, the deep end, and having to sort it out is the way that you learn. But it might be useful to maybe you could set up sort of a client group and a designer group within the uni and say, right, you can never meet each other face to face. You can only communicate through email and you can only communicate through this website. That is a bit of a test of how are you going to communicate the work you've done because you can't physically meet each other. That could be, I guess that could be a way to do it. I don't know how you would stop people from seeing each other and speaking to each other, but that would really be the only way to sort of prepare you for it, because I think it really hit home how organised and visual you have to be when you collaborate with people you're never going to see, because you have to plan your time down to sort of 5 minutes, and that 5 minutes needs to be really straightforward. It needs to understand, not sort of a couple of bullet points of text, because it's not engaging or interesting. I might possibly use WordPress. I mean, myself and some of my peers, we've got a blog that we run at the minute and we use something called Blogger. But WordPress, I think it is better than what we're using, so I think we're looking to maybe transfer everything into a WordPress account, because it was quite good. And I know there's a couple of designers here that use that as well. I've been offered an interview for an internship, but because it runs at the same time as my final major project and my exploration project, I can't not be here. Because I would have liked to do a collaboration on my final major project with Motorola. But I could do it, but I have to do it from here, and that's not what they want, so it's kind of postponed, I guess, or maybe hopefully. But no, it definitely prepared me for sort of maybe virtual meetings with clients, because that's essentially what it was. And I know that happened when I was on placement this year. There were often teleconference client meetings, which I wasn't involved with. Having been involved with them in Northumbria, I would have felt confident doing that. So yeah, I think we learned a lot using teleconferencing and having a site to upload all your work to. I think it's prepared us for having to do it in the future.